The scene opens with a battleship cutting through the Pacific Ocean. The rhythmic crashing of night waves against the ship creates an ominous backdrop, drowning out hurried footsteps, boots pounding against the steel surface. Behind him, the clatter of rifles grows louder, and an authoritative voice yells, "Freeze!" Blinding beams of light converge on the man as he skids to a halt near the edge of the ship.
All clear.
There's nowhere left to run.
Area secure.
Their weapons trained on him. Suddenly, the air vibrates with the thunderous roar of helicopter blades. As floodlights blaze down from above, a commanding officer steps forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "No sudden movements, or we will shoot!" he barks. The man at the edge of the ship turns slowly, his gaze sharp and unyielding. Water cascades around him, shimmering under the floodlights as he faces 12 rifles aimed squarely at him. The soldiers click off their safeties in unison. A set of deliberate footsteps approaches, breaking the tense silence. "Your revenge ends here," he states. The officer leading the unit stops, his words razor sharp. "You should have known from the beginning." He steps closer. "A single Easterner stood no chance against us." The officer's icy gaze locks onto the man. "Get those hands up," he commands. He slowly pulls his hands from his pockets. In one hand, a pair of dice gleams faintly in the light. A faint, unsettling smile tugs at his lips as he raises his arms to either side. Then he shifts his weight backward. Bullets rip through the air, finding their mark with merciless precision. Among the barrage, a single pistol shot pierces through, striking the man squarely in the head. For a fleeting instant, his gaze tilts upward, catching sight of the smoking barrel of the commanding officer's pistol. His body crumples, falling lifelessly into the churning sea below. The water engulfs him with a resounding splash. "Stupid man." The commanding officer lowers his weapon, watching as the blood-tinged waves erase all trace of the man, shaking his head as the last remnants of bubbles rise to the surface. Beneath the cold, unforgiving ocean, the man's vision fades, the world slipping away. "This," he reflects in his final moments, "was the last memory I had." As time passes, a man suddenly jolts awake, his breath ragged, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, a dream he's relived countless times. His abrupt movements stir the woman beside him. She turns toward him, her voice soft with concern. "What's wrong, Akira?" she asks, her words gentle as she leans closer. "You were groaning a lot." Her voice pulls him back to reality. A faint, weary smile forms on his lips as he sighs deeply, trying to shake off the haunting remnants of his dream. He wraps his arms around her. "It's nothing," he murmurs, pulling her closer. "I'm fine." As they settle back into the quiet of the night, the camera pans across the room, landing on a single die resting on his desk, a silent testament to a day when Akira took a gamble and won. The scene fades to black. Welcome to Two Narrators' retelling of Alive. If you enjoyed this slice of life, please like, comment, and share. Time marches forward, and the scene transitions to a bustling city, but this story does not unfold in the heart of the metropolis. Instead, the camera veers left, zooming toward a stately all-girls school. A soft hum of chatter fills the air as the morning assembly draws to a close. A composed voice on the loudspeaker announces, "This concludes the opening address for the second school term." The view shifts to a grand podium where a distinguished woman continues speaking. "We will now proceed to the student commendations." Her words echo through the assembly as the camera moves seamlessly through the crowd. "In the International High School Debate Tournament," the announcer begins, "this individual achieved a new record and led the national team to victory." As she speaks, vivid images flash on screen, highlighting a confident young woman playing basketball, her fiery determination undeniable. She is also the captain of the high school girls basketball team, which won the national championship. The crowd erupts in cheers, the atmosphere electrified. The announcer proudly declares, "Please congratulate Sakurada Hikaru." Applause cascades through the audience as the focus shifts to Sakurada, surrounded by adoring peers. Compliments pour in. "She has excellent grades and is amazing at sports," another adds, "not to mention her beauty." "Ah, Another chimes in. She's just perfect, clasping her hands with enthusiasm. The announcer clears her throat to continue. Next, for receiving the judge's prize in the Japanese art competition, Tsukishima Hibiki. Her words carry a sharp contrast to the earlier fanfare. The room grows eerily silent. The camera zooms in on Tsukishima, standing quietly amid the muted reaction. Her downcast eyes and the slight sigh she lets out speak volumes. Whispers ripple through the crowd. What's the point of something like painting anyway? One girl mutters carelessly, prompting scattered laughter. Sakurada glances at Tsukishima, studying the isolated girl for a moment before turning away, and the scene shifts to the school's lively cafeteria. The lunchtime atmosphere sparkles with energy and decadence. Professional chefs flip eggs, plating glamorous dishes. Students chatter excitedly. What should I get? One girl asks, scanning the options. I'll have an omelet, her friend replies. Then I'll get a steak, another exclaims with exuberance. Amidst the opulence, a bento box slides across a table. Tsukishima opens it, her face softening as she takes a bite. Ah, delicious, she thinks. Soft footsteps approach, and a cheerful voice interrupts her thoughts.
Hey, is this seat free?
Sakurada asks, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. As Sakurada suddenly sits down without waiting for a reply.
It's rare to see bentos here. Did you make it yourself?
She asks. Tsukishima fidgets, her chopsticks trembling slightly in her hands.
My grandma made it.
She murmurs softly, her voice barely audible.
I see.
Sakurada replies, warmly. As they continue to exchange words, murmurs ripple through the lunchroom. The sight of Sakurada and Tsukishima together stirs a commotion, their classmates whispering and casting curious glances. The camera pans out, capturing the bustling scene before zooming back in on the two girls. Sakurada stands suddenly, her expression playful. Let me have a bite. Before Tsukishima can react, Sakurada leans over the table, effortlessly taking a bite of the food. Tsukishima gasps audibly. Meanwhile, Sakurada sits back down casually, entirely unbothered.
Delicious,
she says happily. Her presence, however, feels overwhelming to Tsukishima. She grips her bento box tightly, her thoughts spiraling. Why does it have to be her? She laments internally. Tsukishima abruptly stands, clutching her bento. Without a word, she rushes out of the lunchroom, leaving Sakurada watching her retreat, her head tilted curiously. As time passes, the scene shifts to the quiet solitude of the art room. Only the faint sound of breathing and the gentle swish of a brush against a canvas breaks the stillness. Tsukishima works intently, her focus entirely on the large, intricate tree she's painting. Quiet footsteps echo behind her, but she remains too engrossed in her work to notice. A cheerful voice cuts through the calm.
Hey, what are you painting?
Startled, she spins around.
Why are you here?
Tsukishima stammers, her heart racing. Sakurada strolls forward nonchalantly,
I'm skipping club activities.
stepping closer until she's right beside Tsukishima.
I knew you painted, but
Her gaze shifts to the canvas. She trails off. For a brief moment, Tsukishima finds herself mesmerized. Sakurada steps aside, her playful smile returning as she clasps her hands behind her back.
hey, wanna go somewhere with me later?
She says, as the scene fades to black. As the scene transitions to the tranquil expanse of the ocean, peaceful atmosphere is suddenly interrupted. Huh? Wait a minute! Where are you now? An older gentleman's voice shouts angrily. The main actor hasn't been on standby since morning, he bellows. We're about to start filming, you know? He sighs angrily as his voice gets further away. This is the movie everyone has their eyes on. Do you know how much money is going into this? The screen shifts to a film producer seated behind a desk. She thinks she's some big shot actress, the producer mutters irritably. The scene cuts to a car speeding along a winding road. Inside, a woman finishes a phone call and tosses her phone carelessly into the back seat. He's making a fuss about every little thing. What an idiot, she grumbles, lighting a cigarette with a flick of her lighter. No matter how much money you throw into it, rubbish is still rubbish, she says dismissively. The man sitting beside her reaches for the radio, turning up the volume to drown out the hum of the car. She glances at him, her tone shifting to something more sultry. Akira, don't forget we have a meal appointment with Papa today, she says. When Akira remains silent, she continues, I finally got a spot in his schedule for us, so you'd better not be late. Akira doesn't reply, his eyes fixed ahead. Frustrated, she leans closer. If you do anything stupid, you're on your own, she warns, before she adds, coyly, Papa really loves me after all. Before she can finish her thought, Akira abruptly snatches the cigarette from her hand and flicks it out the window. She screeches in protest. Ah! Hey, what are you doing? His reply is calm. No smoking in the car. He says simply, his eyes never leaving the road. The bustling cityscape comes into focus as people move about their day. Among the crowd, a familiar figure bumps into someone. Sorry, Tsukishima mutters, clutching her painting tightly to her chest. Her thoughts race as she scans her unfamiliar surroundings. This area is forbidden by the school, she thinks nervously. If I stay here alone, her shoulders slump as the realization sets in. I knew it. This was just a prank. A cold breeze brushes past her face. Suddenly,
Here you go.
a cheerful voice calls out. Startled, Tsukishima looks up to find Sakurada standing before her, catching Tsukishima completely off guard. How much was it? Tsukishima stammers, unsure how to respond. Sakurada simply shakes her head, her smile widening. It's fine. Take it as thanks for the bento, she says brightly. Sakurada beams happily as she takes a bite of her ice cream. Desserts after school are the best, she says. Tsukishima watches her, unable to look away. Tsukishima hesitates before nervously asking, why are you hanging out with me? Sakurada pauses mid-bite, her eyes shifting upward as she mulls over the question. Let's see. If I had to say, she trails off. The world seems to slow as she finally looks up. Payback, I guess. The air thickens. Tsukishima freezes. Slowly, she turns her head, confusion and a flicker of fear dancing across her face. Huh? Sakurada only smiles. Her expression is cheerful as ever. Tsukishima halts. What do you mean? But before she can get an answer, a deep, unsettling voice interrupts them. Hey! What are you girls doing? A shadow looms over them, cast by a man with dreadlocks stepping forward, making both girls instinctively take a step back. Seems like you're having a lot of fun. Before either girl can respond, 4 other men emerge from the shadows, surrounding them. The man with dreadlocks smirks. Mind if we join? The scene abruptly shifts to Akira sitting in his car at a stoplight. His gaze flicks to the side view mirror, where he spots the 2 girls being cornered by the group of men. His jaw tightens, but his face remains unreadable. Get out, he says suddenly. The woman in the passenger seat turns to him, her eyes widening in disbelief. Huh? She mutters, confused. What? Why so suddenly? Akira doesn't answer immediately. Finally, he repeats, Enough, get out now. Frustration flares in her voice. What is it? You got cold feet now? She snaps, but Akira remains silent. His silence only enrages her further. She leans forward, grabbing his shirt and pulling him closer. The movement reveals the faint scars of bullet wounds on his chest, momentarily startling her into silence, but her irritation quickly resurfaces. Who do you think I am? Leaning in closer, she continues, Think carefully about what would happen if I'm not there. Kira doesn't flinch, his face remaining stoic. She presses on. If Papa finds out about this, someone like you will. Her sentence is abruptly cut short as Akira's hand gently cups her chin. He pulls her into a sudden kiss, silencing her protests. Her eyes widen, shock overtaking her anger. The sounds of the bustling sidewalk outside fade into the background as the moment stretches on.
No, wait.
A faint clicking noise interrupts the scene. Subtle, but persistent.
Hey, did you hear something?
She asks. He pulls away, his voice low and seductive. I really need you to get off here. Miss Star Actress, he adds, the faintest hint of mockery in his smile. Please. Her composure returns in fragments. Quickly adjusting her glasses, she huffs in frustration, slamming the car door shut as she exits, leaving Akira to refocus on the unfolding situation ahead. Back with the girls, one of the men steps closer, his grin widening as he eyes their uniforms. Hey, aren't those Seiju Girls Academy uniforms? He asks. Another man perks up. For real? That's a rich girls' school. Jackpot, he says. The man with dreadlocks spots Tsukishima's bag and reaches for it. Oh ho, and what's this? He asks, yanking it from her grasp. He quickly rummages through it, pulling out her painting. What the hell is this? He mutters. With a scoff, he tosses the bag aside. Ain't valuable at all. Another man laughs, like she'd carry something important around. Haha. Sakurada steps forward.
Stop it, you guys! That's...
Her voice is cut off as the man with dreadlocks grabs her face, pulling her closer. His expression darkens as he leans in. Hey, young lady, have you ever felt the disparity in society? He asks. No way, right? You people are always high up in the clouds, he continues, tightening his grip. You should experience what it's like at the bottom sometimes. But if you don't play with us, the sinister intent in his voice becomes undeniable as he leans in further. Even trash like us have the right to enjoy our lives, he adds. Right? His gaze shifting to Tsukishima. Tsukishima, and the words burst from her in a raw, desperate scream.
No!
Suddenly, the hum of a car engine cuts through the tension. A loud crash follows, sending the man with dreadlocks flying. A car screeches to a halt in front of the group, the radio still faintly playing. The door swings open, and Tsukishima's eyes widen as she sees the figure emerge. It's Akira, standing tall with one hand on his hip. The tension shifts instantly as Akira calmly walks over, kneeling to pick up Tsukishima's discarded bag. Dusting it off, he holds it out to her. "Here," he says softly. Tsukishima stares at him. Akira meets her gaze, his expression warm. "This is important to you, right? Good thing it wasn't ruined." Tsukishima's face flushes red as she nods slightly, unable to find her voice. Sakurada observes quietly. The moment is shattered as one of the remaining men growls.
Hey you! Are you messing with us? Huh?
Weapons are drawn. Brass knuckles, knives, bats. The threat looms heavy, but Akira doesn't falter. Instead, he reaches into his pocket, pulling out a six-sided die. Confusion flickers across the thugs' faces. "What?" they stammer collectively.
Get him!
The men rush at him. With a flick of his wrist, he caught the dice mid-air. The men charged forward, causing the girls nearby to shriek in terror, clutching each other. In the chaos, Akira reached behind one of the girls and swiftly yanked her shirt down. The sudden action froze the thugs in their tracks as blood erupted from their noses. Taking advantage of the distraction, Akira lunged. His fists flew. The fight became a blur of rapid movements, each thug disarmed and knocked out in seconds. As he approached the last man, a dreadlocked figure standing at the back, the thug pulled a gun from his pocket. Too slow, Akira was already upon him. Akira produced a taser, pressing it to the man's face. His body locked up before collapsing to the ground. The girls stared in disbelief, trembling at the sheer audacity of it all. Akira, unbothered, tossed the taser aside with a laugh. "Yo, ladies, wanna hop on?" Sakurada's face turned red with fury.
Give me a break! Who'd want to go with you?
She yelled, stomping her foot in frustration. Akira watched her pout. He echoed her words in a teasing tone. "Give me a break?" His gaze shifted between the two girls as he added, "I did save you, though." He nodded to himself. Isn't it common sense to show gratitude after someone saves you? No. Wait, even kids know that, right? Sakurada's anger boiled over at the insult. "Fine! I'll hop on!" she yelled, stomping her foot in frustration. Akira's smirk. "That's the spirit." Tsukishima, meanwhile, glanced nervously at the disheveled thug on the ground, being stomped underneath Sakurada's foot as he twitches slightly. Moments later, the sound of car doors slamming shut, and they sped through the city, weaving down unfamiliar roads. A dark, shadowy nightlife painted the scene outside, and Tsukishima fidgeted in her seat, unsettled by the dimly lit streets and the strange figures walking in the gloom. Sakurada leaned forward, shooting Akira a glare. "Are you trying to scare us? Bringing us to a place like this?" she demanded. "We're not kids, you know." Leaning back in her seat, Akira tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Without warning, he turned the wheel sharply. The car veered right. They drifted into a narrow alley and came to a sudden halt. The girls scrambled to sit upright. Their eyes adjusted to the darkness, and soon they noticed three figures in the distance. A young girl flanked by two men. The larger of the men grabbed the girl from behind. Both Tsukishima and Sakurada gasped, their eyes widening in shock. A sharp snap of Akira's fingers brought them back to reality. "How's that?" he asked, glancing at them through the rearview mirror. "Was that fresh enough for you?" Turning slightly in his seat, "You girls don't notice these things, but if you stray even a little from the right path, you'll fall into this world." Both girls stared at him. Akira continued, "You are just lucky to have no ties to this world." He shifted gears, and the car suddenly jolted backward, accelerating with shocking speed. The scenery blurred around them as the car raced past 100 miles per hour. Tsukishima clutched her seat, while Sakurada curled up and screamed, "No!" When the car finally screeched to a halt, they found themselves back on familiar streets. The warm glow of streetlights illuminated people walking by. Akira leaned back in his seat and grinned. "Hopefully, your school doesn't find out about that mess," he said, turning toward them. "But hey, if you ever need a ride again, I'll be glad to accompany you two," he says with a smile. "Whenever you feel like it, okay?" His casual tone sent Sakurada over the edge, her face red with anger. Grabbing her bag, she barked,
Tsukishima, let's go!
What?
Tsukishima stammered. Seconds later, the two girls stormed off.
I can't believe him!
Sakurada fumed.
What a scumbag!
As the two disappeared into the night, their minds swirled with the events that had just unfolded. Meanwhile, Akira sat in the car. As the night gave way to dawn, the scene shifted to the bright, sunny grounds of Seiju Girls Academy. Cherry blossom petals floated gently through the air as students filed into the school, chatting and laughing. The grand entrance to the academy stood tall. Inside the staff room, teachers gathered. "It's already the start of a new school year," a female teacher said with a sigh as she walked up behind a male colleague. "Isn't it more depressing for us than the students, Mishima-sensei?" a teacher asked playfully. Mishima stammered. He closed his eyes, unsure how to respond. The teacher continued, leaning in closer. "You see, even the students think art, sports, and music are just ways to kill time," she said with a hint of frustration. Mishima replied regretfully, "Well, we are a prep school, after all." Hearing this, she nodded. "I'm sure it's all just child's play for these geniuses, right, Kaneyama-sensei?" she added, turning to another teacher. Kaneyama, caught off guard, stammered, "Huh? Me?" Before she could say more, a sharp, authoritative voice broke through the conversation, her demeanor instantly silencing the chatter. "Speaking of which, a new teacher will be joining us today." The once energetic teacher shrank back, looking nervous. Oh my, again? Why?" she asked hesitantly. "No reason," the strict teacher replied curtly. "I heard the board chairman approved it, though." The other teachers exchanged glances, chuckling nervously. That chairman, huh?" Mishima muttered. "Maybe they had some dirt on him," the younger teacher added with a weak laugh. The strict teacher ignored them. "I don't know what career he's had before this, but as part of the teaching staff at Seiju Girls Academy, the model for women around the world, it won't be an easy job," she said. She shot a glare at the other teachers, adding, "However, replacements for you lot are a dime a dozen." Her words landed like a slap. Suddenly, the piercing screech of tires drawing everyone's attention. "What is it? Seems noisy outside," Mishima stammered. The sound of burning rubber made heads turn toward the windows. A sleek car roared into view, tearing down the school parking lot at an alarming speed. Students ran to the windows, their curiosity piqued. The car came to an abrupt, screeching halt. The students stared, awestruck. A few waved excitedly, while others gawked. The car door swung open, and out stepped a man in a suit. As the scene shifts inside, students can be seen crowded around a notice board, scanning for their new class assigned to them. Tsukishima made her way through the bustling crowd, murmuring to herself as she ran a finger down the list. "Let's see, where am I?" Her finger stopped just as another hand reached the same spot. She turned, startled, to find Sakurada standing beside her. The two girls blinked at each other in surprise. "No way!" Tsukishima whispered nervously. Sakurada grinned happily.
Is this fate, perhaps?
Before either could react further, the bell rang loudly. "Ah, shoot, let's go!" Sakurada exclaimed, pushing Tsukishima from the back. As they hurried down the hallway, Tsukishima glanced back over her shoulder. Her breath caught as she spotted a man walking in the distance. The classroom buzzed with the sound of chairs scraping against the floor as the students stood in unison. "Rise," the teacher instructed. The students bowed politely. "Please be seated," she continued, adjusting her glasses. The room settled into silence as the teacher stepped forward. "Before we begin homeroom, I have an announcement to make. Since Nakajima-sensei is on maternity leave, please welcome your new teacher." A man stepped into the classroom. Sakurada's eyes widened in shock, and the room collectively gasped. As the teacher introduced him, she says, "He will be in charge of Japanese from now on." Pausing briefly, she continued, "His name is Hondo-sensei." Whispers spread through the classroom as the girls murmured among themselves. Sakurada, meanwhile, sat frozen, disbelief etched across her face. Beside her, Tsukishima's face turned bright red as she stared at Akira's eyes, her fingers clutching her desk tightly. Akira set a small pair of dice on the edge of his desk. "I'm Hondo Akira, pleased to meet you." The subtle action going unnoticed by most as the screen fades to black.